And welcome back to all of our viewers this morning. It is the day after the SEA. And since yesterday, I believe that students and teachers have been having a sigh of relief following these exams. So yesterday, the exam was administered to thousands of primary school students, right? We do have on the line this morning the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association, Mr. Martin Lumpkin. Mr. Lumpkin, good morning, and thank you as always.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Hopkinson, and good morning to your viewers and listeners. Thank you again for having us on your program.
Of course, Mr. Lumpkin. Well, following the examination yesterday, the Ministry of Education sent out a statement saying that the exam was administered yesterday without a hitch. Is that your view, Mr. Lumpkin? Is that so?
From the feedback we have been getting, by and large, there were no reports of irregularities at the centers. We're getting anecdotal reports, though, that in some centers there were the opened envelope which contained the scripts. Now, if that is the case, I am assured, or I am certain that our center supervisors would have reported it in the irregularities report. It brings into question the fact that not too long after, or even sometimes during the examination, you hear of reports that the scripts are circulated on social media. And in the past, our educators would have been blamed for that. If what we are hearing is true, then the Ministry of Education should take a careful look at the scripts before they are sent to schools. It may be, I'm not saying that it is true, it may be a case that someone within the Ministry of Education is sending out these scripts before ministry officially sends it to the schools for the examination. And then later, a couple of months after, they will send copies to the school so that the schools can utilize that in their preparations.
Yeah. Well, I also see in that same statement, the education minister has said that she was satisfied with the administration and security measures which led to the efficient execution of the examination. And I'm just making this statement following the statement about security that you're making, Mr. Lumpkin, because to me, this should not really be the conversation after SEA about any sort of irregularities security-wise. To me, by now, there should be a system in place to protect whatever test papers are to be given to the students, and there should be a smooth running of everything.
Yes, and the ministry would assure all schools that security measures from the instance they receive the papers from CXC to the distribution, to the collection and correction, and then the results, that high security levels are implemented. And by and large, we do take that for granted from the Ministry of Education. However, as you know, any measure of security can be breached. There are instances where there will be some leak or, porous issue as well. So they do try, and we give them that credit. However, this year, in terms of security at schools, before and during the examination, we had to question the reason why the Ministry of Education would have implemented such measures, especially granting the day off before the examination. We have not gotten any official reason why from the ministry. And Mr. Hopkinson, if you can assure your players in this whole scenario of SEA examination, especially the nature of this high-stake examination, whereby not only the students, the educators, the parents are at a knife's edge. If you can give information, and sometimes sensitive information, we understand, has to be retained. However, if you give your association, and we have demonstrated to the Ministry of Education that we are willing to work with the ministry. If they had said to us, look, the security reason was for X, Y, and Z, then we could have assured our members that the ministry is attempting to have the examinations administered in a safe environment. And we can, give that level of assurance. But when we are in the dark, we also have to ask questions, because our members are, and up to yesterday morning, some of our members were questioning the reason why they were having such stringent and additional security measures. And we couldn't answer. We just had to speculate or just say we don't know. So we are hopeful that in the future, the ministry will work with us and let us assure our members that the best interests of the examination and the players in the examination are covered by their measures.
Mr. Lumpkin, let's look at the SEA in a holistic sense now, because every year following the SEA, we do have a conversation about how the SEA is working for the students and even the teachers and even the parents, all of the stakeholders. Now, the SEA has been in existence for a number of years now. How has the SEA served us? Has it been working well?
Firstly, we have to point out that the Ministry of Education has admitted the SEA examination is a placement examination. So you rank the students according to their performance, and they are then placed in schools. One of the challenges we have is in the Constitution gives the parents the right to choose a school. And within that assists the SEA, and from way back, the Common Entrance examination. I wrote Common Entrance in 1983, and it was a placement examination. If we are looking at a seamless transition from ECCE straight up into tertiary, we should not really have a placement examination as such. And persons are going to be adamant and fight it. They're going to say that it is working because they have vested interest in this examination, this high-stake examination. But if we simply look at the psychological effects that our students, our teachers, we sometimes forget that our teachers also go through the stress, and our parents, and the nation as a whole. As you said rightly, there was a sigh of relief. They breathed a sigh of relief when they completed it. But let's look at the lead up to that. From as far back as Standard 3, parents are paying for lessons for our children. Is education really being sought in this manner? Why do we have this high-stakes examination, this formal testing as such? Couldn't we do it, in a different way? And can we place the children in a different way? But there are so many factors that lead to the SEA continuing to be in the education system. Ttuta has said we need to revisit this, have serious conversations in terms of the effects, and can we find different ways to have our students transition from primary to secondary.
Yeah, but Mr. Lumpkin, how do we remove the stress away from our children when it comes to SEA? I think that the stress, it can be compared to the same level of stress that people like you and I had when we sat the Common Entrance examination, right? So how do we remove this level of stress away from them?
It is a matter of looking carefully at our methodology of assessing our students and examinations as a whole. We are placing too much emphasis on these examinations, these standardized tests, whereas we can look at other methods. So a previous administration attempted to introduce continuous assessment. The literature and the whole idea of continuous assessment is not a bad idea. It's the implementation of such. And if you continuously assess the students throughout the lifetime of whatever stage they are at, then you get a better picture of their progress and how they learn. And we also have to look at what are we assessing? Are we assessing the education? Are we assessing for education or of education, or both? It should be both. And so the entire conversation has to be looked at. And when we really look at 11-year-old, 12-year-old going through that stress, they should not be going through that at this point in time. There must be another method of seamless transitioning from primary to secondary. Continuous assessment may be one, as well as a test that is not so highly stressed or high stake.
I know in the placement process there has been zoning in that process, and I know that parents have expressed great concern about that, and some have even said that they just think it is unfair. Do you have a perspective on the zoning that in the placement process?
Zoning has its merit. It has its demerit as well. But if we make all schools, and I say in inverted commas, equal, such that we don't have a prestige school versus a non-prestige school or government school, that kind of thing. If all schools are seen as being equal, and if we really look at the trust of the Ministry of Education to have inclusive education and to have persons who have high abilities versus low abilities in the same environment, because when you leave school, that's what you're going to face in reality. If we give all the schools equal resources, we give them the type of resources that are necessary, then it shouldn't matter which secondary school your child goes. If it's closer to home, then there are advantages. I know of students who leave Cedros to go into San Fernando, having to get up 3, 4 in the morning to catch the transport at 5. And then they are coming back sometimes 4, 5 in the evening. That in itself is not an enabling environment for our students. By the time they get up and they go to school, if they don't go to sleep very early, they're tired. And by the time they come home, they're also tired in order to review what they would have done. And that plays on the minds of the children as well. And so if they are closer home, there is the likelihood that that reduced commute can assist in their education as well.
Well, I know that most of the concerns, it usually follows, let's take a particular area such as Port of Spain, where they have a number of what we call in this country prestige schools, right, in Port of Spain. And so if it is that someone is living in Port of Spain, and if they do not pass for one of the schools in Port of Spain, well, then that's where the argument comes from, that they believe, well, the zoning process is working well. But if you're living in Port of Spain and they send you to a school in another district that may not be a prestige school, well, then that is where the argument comes in.
Yeah, and for us as Ttuta, all schools should be prestige schools. However, that is not the case. Some have more resources, and if we carefully look at it, Mr. Hopkinson, if you put students of a high performance in terms of their academics in one environment, don't you expect that environment will cause them to excel? And there are instances where parents have the know-it-all and the where-it-all to provide extra for these students. So you would have that in those instances. But when you put students who are of a lower academic achievement in one environment, and you're not giving the type of resources to help with reinforcement and so forth, then what happens? Students become frustrated. And when they become frustrated, or if they are not engaged properly, they end up in mischief. and the mischief may grow over time. So we have to look at it in that aspect as well too. Are we now causing that by the system we have? Yes, parents have the choice. And there are, even at primary school, there are students, parents who are outside of the catchment area. And because a school has a certain perception of being prestige, children are coming from long distances to those schools as well.
Yes.
And all of it also would give rise to other aspects that we don't really want to talk about on air, but it is the reality.
Now, I know, and I saw you on the news last night, Mr. Lumpkin, and you made a number of statements about the SEA yesterday, among other issues that you touched on. And I was thinking this morning, what would have made you make such statements at the symposium at which you were speaking yesterday?
Ttuta has always had the view that the SEA is one of the high-stakes exams that our students should not go through. So as I explained earlier,
yes,
in terms of placement and so. However, our education system perpetuates a level of class and a level of not having achievement as such. Now, we may argue in the higher spectrum, students are performing and so. But if you really do a trace from primary to secondary to tertiary, these same students really performing at the further levels. Because as you go higher up in education, it is less about cramming as such, but it is about the higher level skills as well. And so you wonder if that higher level performing skills are really being done at the lower level. And we have to look at what about students who are in the lower spectrum? How are we treating with them? We celebrate those who over 200 and so on, and ministry has stopped that recently. But we would celebrate those who are in the top 200. And that's 200 out of roughly 17,000. What about those who are a bit lower and those to the bottom of the spectrum? What we call the referrals and the 30%. Are we really paying attention to them? Or are we saying to them that you are a failure? Yeah? Is the education system really catering for the needs of our students and the nation at large? What do we look at as national development? Where are the areas that we should be focusing on? We have always spoken about the technical vocational areas. So those that we like to call skills. And some people have the perception that if you're not good academically, and as we say in local term, you don't see, then you should go into a skill. However, those persons are highly, although they may not be academically as we see it, but they are very intelligent. A mechanic in the past to scrap a carburetor and build it back up is almost like a doctor performing surgery. So we have to look carefully at our education system. Yeah. It is an elite system. It is one that perpetuates failure for the most part for some of our students, and we have to see how best we can bring it up to what will enable the country to go forward. Because once they are not engaged in education, they can end up in the life of crime.
Now, I know yesterday that you were speaking at a crime symposium. Maybe we should have a symposium on education now, because, in speaking in educators over the past few days, there are divergent views as to how we move forward, what should be done, what is working, what is not working. And I think, Mr. Lumpkin, there has to be a middle ground. There has to be a balance so that we get this ship of education moving forward.
Yes, we should. The start is to admit that something is wrong in the education system, and there are good aspects as well too. We are not discounting that, yes. But there needs to be admittance that we have to sit down seriously, put aside all political party politics, and let's get it to the table and let's get it right. And Ttuta is always willing to assist in that manner. We do not look at partisan politics. We are looking at what is best for the education system and what is best for Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, President of the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association, Mr. Martin Lumpkin. Mr. Lumpkin, as always, thank you very much for speaking with us. We do appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me. You're most certainly welcome, and looking forward to future engagements.
All right, Mr. Lumpkin, thank you very much again. Mr. Lumpkin is with us, a lot of the times very early in the morning. We do appreciate it. We're going to a very short break, everybody. We're coming back.
Oh, said the engine driver, what the hell I care? Green as grass, white as snow. That is so awesome. Where does a poor man have